Welcome to Karma Chronicles. Please like the video and subscribe. Let's begin.
I was halfway through explaining how I custom fabricated a 67 Mustang's hood scoop when my mom turned to refill her wine and said, "That's nice, honey." Anyway, Claire just won a summary judgment motion against that pharmaceutical company. Big case, major news. That was every family dinner growing up. My name's Rachel. I'm 31 years old. I live in Charlotte, North Carolina. And in my family, I've always been the side dish. Quick note, before we start, how's your day going and where are you joining from? My sister Claire, the litigator, wears her success like a tailored coat. Polished, tight, expensive. She talks in bullet points. Everything's on track or escalating. And my brother Dylan, he could sell sand in a desert. He consults for some international firm, hops cities like bars on a Friday night. The last I heard, he was in Hong Kong, streamlining market expansion. My parents eat it up. I'm the one who didn't go to college, the one who picked grease under her nails over a leather briefcase. I remember when I told them I was going to tech school for custom auto restoration. Dad laughed. Not cruel, just that nervous, dismissive chuckle he does when he thinks I'm joking. "That's cool," he said. "But not really a career. Mom just blinked. "You'll grow out of it." Every holiday since, it's been the same script. Claire gets a standing ovation for whatever courtroom she conquered. Dylan sends a video of himself on some rooftop bar in Tokyo, and Mom passes the phone around like it's a holy relic. Me, I get, "How's your little garage thing going?" Said with a smile like I'm bringing macaroni art to the adult table. Even when I flipped my first car for more than Dylan's quarterly bonus, they barely looked up from Claire's article in the journal. I'd show photos of my weld work, custom grills, quarter panel swaps, full interiors rebuilt by hand, and Dad would just say, "You've always been good with your hands." Good with my hands. Like a kid who can tie her shoes early. I learned to nod, say thanks, and move on. What else could I do? In our house, if it didn't come with a degree or a six-figure salary, it was cute at best. Background noise. The thing is, I stopped needing their approval a long time ago. But that doesn't mean it stopped pissing me off. And every time I walked into that living room, trophies on the shelf, framed diplomas on the wall, I swore under my breath I'd build something they couldn't ignore, even if they tried. So I kept my mouth shut and kept my head down. Right after tech school, I landed a job at a small but solid restoration shop out in Concord. Old guy named Vic ran it, bald, grumpy, sharp as hell. He let me sweep floors and hand him wrenches for 3 months before he even trusted me with a power tool. I didn't complain. I watched, learned everything. Vic was a purist. He didn't mess with shortcuts or aftermarket garbage. If it didn't roll off the line in Detroit, it don't go back in the car, he'd bark. The clients he worked with, these guys weren't looking for just repairs. They wanted memories, wanted the car their dad drove, the one their mom cursed, the one that took them to prom. It wasn't mechanics, it was story work. That stuck with me. I saved every dime I could, skipped happy hours, ate like crap, and after about a year, I bought my first junker. A rusted-out 72 Chevelle sitting in some guy's yard in Kannapolis. Paid cash, hauled it myself. Nights and weekends, I worked on that thing in my rented carport. No lift, no heat, just a floor jack and busted knuckles. I redid the frame, the engine, the wiring, everything. Sanded and painted the body myself. Candy red with a satin finish. Reupholstered the seats in black leather. Spent 6 months on it. Flipped it for 38 grand. That was more than double what I paid for the car and parts combined. My hands were shaking when I deposited that check. Told my parents the next weekend at dinner. "Wow," my dad said, barely looking up from his plate. "That's solid. Claire, how's that new judge treating you?" And just like that, we were back on their golden child. My brother called in from Hong Kong on speaker, talking about his latest client win and the apartment he was leasing, with a view of the whole skyline. I stopped trying to finish my story. That was the last time I brought up money around them. 2 years later, I opened my own shop. Real small. Just 2 bays and a back room I turned into an office. Didn't tell them, no announcement, no ribbon cutting. I just got the keys, painted the walls, and opened the damn door. I called it Iron and Oil Customs. No frills, no gimmicks. Just my name on the paperwork and my sweat in the floor. At first, it was quiet, word-of-mouth stuff. Vic sent a couple referrals my way. Then, a guy brought in his dad's old Roadrunner. Wanted it drivable but clean. I made it sing. He told 3 buddies. Then, they told theirs. I didn't just restore cars. I made them mean something again. I'd sit down with the clients, ask what the car meant to them. One guy cried talking about his Camaro. Another brought a Polaroid of his mom standing in front of a '66 Lincoln. I kept that photo on the shop wall for months. It stopped being just mechanical. I started designing, mixing old with new, modern sound systems hidden behind vintage faceplates, custom upholstery stitched from their granddad's old leather jacket, paint matched to childhood bicycles. I wasn't just building cars, I was building nostalgia. But to my family, I was still just working at a shop. Claire got invited to speak at a legal conference in DC. Dylan made it into some Forbes under 40 list. My mom group texted the whole family about both, with smiley faces and exclamation points. I posted a photo of my latest build on Instagram, metallic blue '69 Charger, full frame-off resto, custom twin turbo. Got picked up by a car blog. My dad commented, "Cool," with a thumbs up. That was it. So I stopped posting for them. I didn't need their claps. I had clients driving hours to hand me their life stories on 4 wheels, and I had bigger plans anyway. I was dropping off parts at a supplier when I saw it. An old military hangar, half hidden behind a chain link fence, out on the edge of town near an abandoned rail spur. One of those places people drove past without seeing. But I saw it. Big curved roof, rust streaks, peeling aluminum panels, broken windows and busted doors. It looked like hell. But the bones were solid, and the lot, zoned commercial. I couldn't stop thinking about it. For days, I drove out there after work, just parked across the street and stared. Not once did I see another soul. Then I tracked down the property owner. Guy lived in Wilmington, hadn't been out to see it in years. I made an offer. He accepted the next morning, cash only. I wired everything I had, every dime. Cleared out my accounts, sold my side project car, even dipped into the emergency stash I swore I'd never touch. I didn't tell a single person, not my parents, not even Vic. The day I got the keys, I walked through the space alone. The roof leaked. The walls rattled when trucks passed by. There were rats, no plumbing, no HVAC, just wide open space and oil stains from God knows when. But it felt like mine. I called in 2 guys I trusted from my shop, Luis and Malcolm. We'd been through some nasty rebuilds together, and I knew they wouldn't ask dumb questions. First thing we did was strip the inside down to the skeleton, ripped out old ducts, pulled busted panels, tossed piles of rotted insulation. We worked long days and longer nights, no blueprints, just vision. I replaced the front wall with floor-to-ceiling glass, industrial frames, clean lines, sandblasted the beams, kept the raw metal exposed, built a second-floor catwalk along the edge for showroom views. It wasn't just going to be a shop. I wanted something no one had done in this town. A hybrid space, custom builds, high-end car shows, invite-only auctions, even private events. Not some grimy garage, but a full-on experience. Artistry, mechanics, exclusivity. That was the idea. People with real money don't just want restored cars. They want bragging rights, a place to bring their buddies and say, "This is where my ride was born." I found a designer off Instagram to help with the branding. Neutral tones, metallic accents, luxe finishes that screamed high-end without trying too hard. She nailed it. By the 6-month mark, we were already booking out the first small event. Just 30 people, local collectors, catered bar, soft jazz in the background. No banners, no ads, all word of mouth. And every single one of them walked in and said the same thing. I had no idea this was here. Exactly. Meanwhile, my parents still thought I was working at some shop. My mom asked if I was putting money into retirement. My dad forwarded me an email about a job at the state transportation department. I said thanks and changed the subject. Because if I told them the truth, they'd panic, they'd say it was reckless, too risky, that I was gambling my future. I didn't want the lectures. I didn't want the forced smiles or the tight voices that followed. So I didn't give them a reason to weigh in. Let them think I was still under a lift somewhere, replacing brake lines and changing oil. I knew what I was building. I didn't need them to understand it, not yet. We were still cleaning up oil stains off the concrete when a guy named Eric rolled in with a '55 Bel Air and a weird request. Said he and his fiancée wanted to get married surrounded by restored classics. Nothing tacky, he made that clear. He wanted something elegant, intimate, and very automotive. He'd seen photos from our soft launch, called it exactly the vibe. I almost laughed. We hadn't hosted anything more formal than a catered whiskey tasting. But I looked him dead in the eye and said, "We can make that happen." 4 weeks later, we did. 15 cars, hand-picked from local collectors, staged like sculpture around the space, polished floors, moody lighting, and a chandelier made from old crankshafts I welded myself. The ceremony happened right in front of a Mint 63 Corvette split window. A photographer tagged us on Instagram, and the next thing I knew, the photos landed in Drive Culture magazine, one of those glossy lifestyle rags for rich gearheads. They called the venue an unexpected intersection of horsepower and high design. From that moment, everything shifted. Suddenly, we weren't chasing clients. They were coming to us. Collectors, brokers, even a few old rock stars. I started getting emails from Europe. A guy from London wanted to fly in and commission a custom Jaguar rebuild. Another wanted to host a birthday gala beside a collection of vintage Porsches. I was still under the radar, but now we had eyes, serious ones. So I hired a PR team out of Atlanta. Sharp, fast-talking, knew exactly how to pitch us. We rebranded the business to something slick and boutique-sounding. Revival Steel. No customs, no garage. Just clean, modern luxury branding. My name wasn't anywhere on the homepage. On purpose. I brought on staff, front-of-house coordinator, logistics lead, private event planner, and I reinvested everything. Every dime we made went back into the builds, the space, the team. We started flying in vintage parts, commissioned original artwork for the lounge area. Nothing was cheap, and none of it was accidental. But to my family, I was still doing well at that car shop. My mom told her friend I was doing something creative with engines. My dad asked if I was putting anything into a 401k. Then Claire came to town, some work thing downtown. We were supposed to grab coffee, but she canceled last minute. Sent a text while I was in the middle of tuning a carburetor. "Sorry, ran out of time. Flew right past your place on the way in. That's near that weird airplane hangar, right?" Yeah, that hangar was mine. I stared at the text for a second, wiped my hands, and went right back to work. They didn't know, because I didn't want them to. Because the second they got a whiff of risk or ambition, they'd start chirping. Be careful. Make sure you're thinking long-term. Have you thought about government work? Something more stable. Stable. That word made me want to punch drywall. They said it like I was gambling, like I didn't know what the hell I was doing. But I wasn't some teenager racing deadlines in a borrowed bay. I had contracts, licensing, legal teams. I was running a business that was out-earning half the small law firms in town. But sure, let's talk about dental plans and steady paychecks. They didn't get it, and I stopped expecting them to. Not yet, anyway. It was a Thursday night when Luke proposed. He didn't do the whole public thing. No cameras, no Instagram setups. Just us sitting on the couch, takeout containers on the coffee table, and him holding a ring box in one hand like it was the most fragile thing in the world. "Want to do this for real," he said. Simple, steady, like him. I said yes before he finished the sentence. Luke was the first person who ever looked at me and saw more than a welder with decent arms and no filter. He's a documentary filmmaker, quiet, observant, way better at listening than talking. He didn't care about my shop. He cared that I built something, that I didn't back down, that I followed through. When we told my parents, they smiled, congratulated us, hugged Luke. And then my mom said, "Just make sure you don't go overboard. Weddings are a money pit." Dad nodded, like he was warning me about a shady used car lot. "You don't need to impress anyone. Courthouse weddings are respectable." Luke just smiled and held my hand under the table. At dinner the next weekend, the ideas came rolling in. Budget-friendly caterers, public parks with great lighting. And Claire, of course, chimed in with, "If you want help keeping things under control, I know a planner who specializes in frugal weddings." She's aggressive but fair. I cut a piece of my chicken and smiled. "Appreciate it. We'll keep it modest." That word again, modest. They all nodded like I'd said something wise. Meanwhile, the design sketches were already on my desk. I'd started building it out the second I said yes, our wedding layout, right inside Revival Steel. I knew every square inch of that place. The light that poured through the windows at golden hour. The way the polished concrete looked under candlelight. The exact number of guests I could seat without crowding the show cars. I already had the chandeliers picked out, vintage ones from an old theater in Chicago. I'd rewired them myself. The food, sourced, the wine, tasted, the color palette. Deep rust, matte gold, and midnight blue. But to my family, I was still comparing courthouse packages. Let them think they were helping. Let Claire email me Pinterest links to plastic tablecloths and folding chairs. I didn't correct anyone, didn't push back. Because when the day came, I wanted their jaws on the floor, not because I spent a fortune, but because I built every damn inch of it myself. It finally happened on a Sunday afternoon, 3 weeks before the wedding. We were in the middle of lunch, Mom poking at her salad, Dad scrolling through his phone, and she said, "We really should see the venue soon. It's getting close." I wiped my mouth, looked at Luke. He gave a small nod. "All right," I said. "You want to come by this week? I can give you a quick tour." Dad perked up. "You already booked something?" "Yep," I said. "Got a deal through someone I know." That part wasn't a lie. I knew the owner real well. We set it for Wednesday evening. I told them to wear something decent. Nothing fancy, just not yard work clothes. My mom wore a silk blouse. My dad tucked in his shirt. When they pulled up, I was waiting out front. The hangar looked perfect. Polished floors, the glass wall glowing gold from the sunset, steel beams catching the light. Even the scent inside was clean. Machine oil and citrus polish. I'd staged it just like the wedding night. Chandeliers dimmed, tables in place, a couple of restored builds lined up like artwork. Dad stepped inside first and let out a low whistle. "This is not what I expected." Mom's heels clicked on the concrete. "Are those real flowers? Already? Isn't that a little early?" "Test run," I said, keeping my voice flat. Wanted to see how everything looked. They wandered around slow, necks craned like tourists. I watched their eyes bounce from the custom lighting to the leather lounge area to the mezzanine. "This must have cost a fortune," Mom muttered. Dad was frowning now. "You sure this is in your budget? I mean, this is impressive, but one night doesn't need to break the bank." I shrugged. "Got a good rate?" "Even a discount on a place like this has to be pricey," he said, squinting at the ceiling. "Don't go bankrupt over one party." I smiled, bit my tongue, and motioned them toward the far end of the room. Right then, Jenna, my business manager, walked in through the side door with a clipboard. "Oh, hey," she said, spotting me. "Owner updates are ready when you are. I left them in your office." I froze for a beat. So did my parents. Mom blinked. "Wait, owner?" Jenna looked between us. "Yeah, sorry, I thought—" "No, you're fine," I said quickly, then turned back to my parents. "Yeah, I own this place." The silence was loud. You own the venue," my dad asked. "I built it," I said, top to bottom. Mom's mouth actually dropped open, like jaw hanging. "This whole thing is yours. Every inch." I started walking. They followed like they didn't trust their legs. I showed them the office, the service bays, the private lounge upstairs, the projection setup, the custom glasswork, even the damn HVAC system. "This is Revival Steel," I said. "You've probably heard of it. Or driven past it 5 dozen times." Dad finally spoke. "You own Revival Steel." I nodded. "Since day one." He looked pale. Not sick, just shaken. Like the math wasn't adding up. Mom touched one of the brushed steel railings. How long has this been going on?" "Couple years," I said. Kept it quiet. Neither of them said anything for a long minute, just stood there, taking it all in. And me. I didn't rush it. I let the silence sit, let it stretch and settle in their chests like a punch that came late. Because this wasn't just a venue, this was proof. They walked in silence after that. No more comments, no more questions, just quiet steps echoing across polished concrete as they took in what I'd actually built. We passed the mezzanine office, the metal-finished bar, the lighting rig I designed myself. Dad's hand grazed the edge of a custom display stand, like he was trying to check if it was real. Finally, Mom spoke. How big is this place?" 26,000 square feet, I said. "Fully permitted. Zoned for events, restoration, and sales." Dad looked at me. "You're restoring cars here too." I nodded. "The front third is for builds, the middle's for showings, and the back's reserved for events. Sometimes we do all 3 in a day." He blinked. "You're running all this by yourself?" "I've got staff, team of 14, 2 full-time builders, 1 electrical specialist, 3 project managers, events crew, admin, plus the PR team on retainer." He didn't respond, just started doing that thing he always did when his brain was overloaded, rubbing the side of his jaw and staring at the ground like it might give him answers. Mom finally found a bench near the lounge and sat down. Quiet, almost cautious. So, how many events are you doing? She asked. About 150 a year. Her eyes widened. That many? Yeah. Between weddings, auctions, launches, private parties, it fills up fast. We've got clients flying in from New York, Texas, even Europe. Dad let out a slow breath. I could see the gears grinding behind his eyes. And how much revenue are we talking here? I looked him dead in the eye. Last year, a little over 8 million. That shut him up. I could practically see him trying to process it, trying to calculate overhead, subtract expenses, stack it up against Claire's law firm and Dylan's consulting contract. His face said it before his mouth did. You're making more than they are, he mumbled. Triple, I said. At least. He sat down next to Mom. No lecture, no advice, just sat. Then she looked up at me and said, real soft, why didn't you tell us? I leaned against the railing and crossed my arms. Because every time I brought up anything that didn't fit your checklist, college, corporate job, steady pension, you brushed it off. You assumed I was struggling. You thought the garage was a phase, so I stopped trying to explain. They both looked at me, and for once, didn't talk over it. You thought I was the one falling behind, I said. But really, I was building something you never even saw coming. Mom looked around the space again. Her voice was almost a whisper. But how did you learn how to do all this? I shrugged. By being underestimated and outworking everybody. It landed. The truth, the scale of it, the years they missed because they were too focused on the other two. Claire's cases, Dylan's flights. They thought I was the one with greasy hands and a dead-end job. And here they were, sitting inside the empire I built, shocked, speechless. For once, there was no correcting me. No tips or warnings, no budget advice, just silence. And I let it hang in the air until it felt earned. They didn't say much on the way out that night, just quiet thank yous, a few awkward hugs, and a look in my dad's eyes like he'd seen a ghost with my face. 2 days later, my sister called. She never called me first. I picked up, and before I could say anything, she launched in. You never said you were building an empire. Her voice was tight, not angry, shaken, like she didn't know whether to congratulate me or accuse me. I sat back in my chair and grinned. You never asked. I Googled the brand. Revival Steel. You've been in Drive Culture, Road and Wheel, Auto Lux. There's a photo of Jay Leno standing next to one of your builds. Yeah, that was last fall. Silence. Then, I had no idea. Seriously, how did you even pull this off? I didn't bother explaining. She wouldn't get it, not over the phone. I worked, I said. While you were arguing in courtrooms and Dylan was flying business class, I was in a hangar with busted HVAC and no plumbing, trying to make something out of nothing. Later that night, Dylan texted, just heard from Mom. Had to look up the company. Holy shit, this is you. I sent back a thumbs up and left it at that. Next family dinner was different. Mom brought dessert. Dad showed up in a button-down, not a golf polo. Claire actually asked how business was going, not in that polite, fake, curious tone she usually used. I gave short answers, still testing the waters. They didn't interrupt. They listened. Halfway through the meal, Dad leaned forward. So, he said, how are you pricing those events? You doing fixed packages or custom tiers? I paused. Custom tiers, but they look fixed on paper. He nodded, thoughtful. Smart. Keeps people from trying to haggle. Then he looked at me again, for real this time. You hiring a CFO soon. I raised an eyebrow. Why, you applying? He chuckled, but he didn't say no. That was the first time in my life my father looked at me like an equal. I didn't let my guard down right away. After all the years of being brushed off, I wasn't about to throw open the doors like nothing happened. But I didn't shut them out either. Claire texted me links to articles about venue marketing trends. Dylan forwarded me a lead on a German collector looking for a stateside builder. They weren't lecturing anymore. They were looking to me. And I didn't say much, but I noticed. They finally stopped assuming I needed help and started asking how I did it. The sun was just starting to dip when the first guests arrived. Golden light poured through the glass wall, stretching across the floor like it knew the timing. I stood in the bridal lounge upstairs, looking down over the railing at everything I'd built. Real flowers, real linen, real damn legacy. Every car lined up like sculpture. Everything where it needed to be. The chandeliers above the dance floor flickered to life. My chandeliers. I'd pulled them from an old Chicago theater and rewired every socket by hand. My parents arrived early. Mom wore navy. Dad had a tie on, a tie. First one I'd seen on him since Claire's wedding. "Good to see you, Miss Morgan," I heard Jenna say. "Let me grab you both some champagne." "We're fine, thank you," Mom said, polite, calm, like she'd done this 100 times. Dad looked around like he was walking into church. "You did all this," he said to me when I came downstairs. I nodded. "It's beautiful," Mom added. "Truly." They didn't overdo it, didn't gush, but they meant it. I could tell. Guests kept showing up, and I kept hearing the same thing over and over. "Who designed this place? Have you seen the lighting in the bar area? This space is insane." And I smiled and said thanks, even though none of them knew I'd designed every inch. I didn't need to correct them. The right people knew. Luke looked calm when I met him at the altar. Of course he did. That's who he was. Calm, grounded, real. The one person who never underestimated me. The ceremony was short, honest, no theatrics. When it ended, people clapped hard, like they were proud to be there, like it meant something. Dinner was loud, warm, full of toasts, but Claire's caught me off guard. She stood, glass in hand, voice tight at first. "I used to think I had the blueprint for success. College, job title, salary, plan. I thought anything outside that was a phase, a distraction." She paused, looked straight at me. I was wrong. What Rachel built, it isn't just impressive, it's brilliant. She's not the odd one out. She's the one who figured it out first. People clapped. But my mom, she had tears in her eyes, and she didn't hide them. Then my dad stood up, cleared his throat. "I always wanted my kids to be stable. Safe, set up right. I didn't always understand Rachel's choices. I thought they were risky. Honestly, I thought she'd crash and burn." A soft laugh rolled through the room. He looked at me. But she didn't. She flew. She built something lasting. And she did it without needing our applause. "Rachel, you redefined what success looks like for this family." He raised his glass. "To my daughter." And that was the moment. Not the wedding dress, not the vows, not the expensive flowers or perfect playlist. That toast, that room, that moment. The first time I felt fully seen by the people who raised me. Later, Luke and I danced under the chandeliers, his hand on my back, the light bouncing off chrome and polished steel all around us. I looked up and saw Mom leaning on Dad's arm, both of them watching me, smiling. For once, not trying to guide me, fix me, or question me, just proud. We were back home, still picking petals out of our shoes, when Luke looked over and asked, "So, how's it feel?" I didn't need to ask what he meant. I leaned against the counter, kicked off my heels, and said, "Weird. Not bad, just quiet." He raised an eyebrow. "It's not sad. It's not angry, it's just relief." Because for once, I wasn't explaining. I wasn't defending. I wasn't being told to be careful. I was just seen. The next week, my parents called. Not for anything urgent, just to check in. "How's the fall booking calendar?" Mom asked. Dad chimed in. "Still running the European auctions this year." Every Sunday since, they'd call. Same time, same tone. No judgment, just interest. They asked about new builds, upcoming events, plans for expansion. They actually wanted to hear about it. And the outside world noticed too. I got a call from a business podcast, a speaking invite from an entrepreneurship conference in Austin. Some automotive lifestyle network wanted to film a segment. I turned most of it down. A few things I said yes to, if it made sense, but fame wasn't the point. Never was. I still showed up to the shop in steel-toe boots and a ponytail. Still sanded down panels myself when I needed to think. Still sketched layout ideas on napkins at the kitchen table. Revival Steel kept growing, sure, but so did everything else. Luke and I had slow mornings. We hosted friends for dinner. I made time to visit Vic more often. And one night, about 2 months after the wedding, I stayed late at the hangar. Just me and the silence. The lights were off in the main bay, except for the soft glow from the office upstairs. I walked the floor barefoot, letting the cool concrete steady me. I looked around, at the beams I reinforced with my own hands, the windows I picked, the fixtures I installed, the machines that kept running because I refused to stop. This wasn't just a business. This was a life. One I built brick by brick, bolt by bolt, until even my family couldn't look away anymore. Not because I begged them to see it, but because I made it impossible to ignore.